amazing humans were stripped from us, and their babies are left now parentless.
All I remember is that I had my shopping cart, I had my mom, I had my daughter. I grabbed them both and I carried them out.
We'll be able to bounce back, but I don't think we'll be able to bounce back if we live in fear.
Sadly, we find ourselves here again. 31 people gunned down in 2 mass shootings just 13 hours apart. The death toll rising today in El Paso.
We continue to learn more about the victims in Dayton and here in Texas as we process another dark day in our nation's history. Hello and thank you for being with us this evening on Spectrum News at 6 o'clock. I'm Victor Diaz.
And I'm Dr. Nicole Cross. 22 people now confirmed dead in El Paso. 2 of the victims succumbing to their injuries today. And
in Dayton, Ohio, another 9 dead, dozens hurt just hours after the news broke in El Paso. We've been following these stories nonstop for 24 hours here on Spectrum News. We continue now to follow updates throughout the night.
That's right. We've got team coverage all over the state, including there in El Paso. John Salazar is there. John, what can you tell us?
Hi, I'm sorry, here we are. Hi, hello. Yeah, it's hard to believe that it's been 24 hours since this makeshift memorial has started, and you can see at the size and the volume and the amount of people who have shown up to leave some memories, their condolences in the way of flowers, crosses, flags. And I want to show you the flags that are standing right behind all the crosses that were put in place. It's the Texas, the U.S., and the Mexico flag on the other end. That is the culture that is embedded in these people here in El Paso. Now, earlier I caught up with Antonio Bosco, who lost his wife inside that Walmart. And he tells me that just moments before she walked into that Walmart that he had a terrible premonition. 61-year-old Antonio Bosco is standing less than 200 yards away from where his wife Margie was tragically gunned down.
And she goes out and she goes shopping every Saturday here, right here.
The tear-filled gentleman tells me this past Saturday was different.
I don't know, I just had a feeling, a real bad feeling. I said, babe, why don't you just go ahead and stay home? You forget this Saturday, go next Saturday, you double shop.
Bosco's wife kept her routine. She and 21 others did the same, not knowing a killer was on his way to carry out one of the worst massacres in American history.
Well, she always comes home between 1:30 and 2. When it came to quarter after 2, I knew something was wrong.
By that time, news of the mass shooting spread nationwide.
I waited until about dark time, and I knew something was definitely wrong.
Come Sunday morning, police called Bosco to tell him the bad news.
Man, yesterday when they called all the people in, that's when I found out she was dead. She had gotten shot and killed.
Bosco admits he's tried hard to keep his emotions in check the past few days.
I couldn't cry. I mean, she didn't want that.
There you can see some Walmart employees who are embraced, standing in front of those 22 crosses in front of this makeshift memorial. And I can tell you that this is an extraordinarily tight-knit community. Minute after minute, hour after hour, hundreds of people have been showing up to pay their respects. We've learned earlier that there will be another vigil that will be down on I-10 close to the Mexican border. Keep in mind that the city of Juarez is just neighbors with the city of El Paso. There's a big connection between the two, so we do expect that vigil this evening to be a large one. We plan on covering it. For now, we'll send it back to you in the studio.
Thank you very much, John. Well, the families of the El Paso victims are mourning the loss of their loved ones.
That's right. Our Nikki Griswold joins us live in the studio with more on those victims. And Nikki, I cannot imagine the pain they must be feeling.
Well, I think that most of us can agree that our worst nightmare is finding out that someone we love is a victim in a mass shooting like this. We can see that emotion in a heartbreaking clip of a woman who wasn't sure if her mom had survived on Saturday.
I want to just find my mom. Somebody needs to tell me where she is. I want to know if she's dead or alive or if she's still in Walmart.
Edie Hallberg. That was Edie Hallberg, the daughter of 86-year-old Angie Englesby, whose family later found out she had died in the shooting. They said the last time they had heard from her was when she was in the checkout line at the El Paso Walmart. We have just confirmed the identities of additional victims in that shooting. 15-year-old Javier Amir Rodriguez was also killed in that shooting. He was a student at Horizon High School in El Paso. The Clint Independent School District is holding a vigil to honor Rodriguez tonight. The district said they are providing counselors to support student and staff in those schools as they deal with their grief. Sarah Regalado and Adolfo Hernandez were among the 22 people killed in the massacre as well. The husband and wife lived in Mexico, but were at the El Paso Walmart Saturday during the shooting. Their daughter confirmed their deaths in a Facebook post. Gloria Marquez has also been identified as a victim of the mass shooting. Her niece describes her as a dedicated mother and grandmother. She was a Mexican citizen who was in that El Paso Walmart on Saturday during the shooting. And finally, 63-year-old David Johnson has also been confirmed as a victim. We will keep you updated here on Spectrum News with the latest information as we learn the identities of more victims.
El Paso and Dayton are the 31st and 32nd mass shooting in the U.S. this year alone.
The Justice Department defines mass shootings as 3 or more victims killed in a single incident. We're joined now by Jeff Broadus. He's the president of Broadus Defense, and he's an expert in this area. He joins us now on the phone to talk about some of the trends we're seeing in these events. Jeff, thank you for being with us, and we want to know what types of patterns that you're seeing and that are becoming evident when it comes to shooter profiles in these situations.
All right, thank you very much. As far as patterns, when we talk about subject profile, there isn't really, in an academic sense, a profile of someone who perpetrates an active shooter event. Rather, there are factors that we know drive it. For example, better than half the time, there's a substance abuse issue. About 70% of the time, criminal charges or history of criminal issues. We know usually there's a stressor, but the real foot stomper for most people is that 8 out of 10 times this person displays aggressive narcissism or elicits a concern or makes threats. Nowadays, increasingly online with social media, but clearly people around them, known associates, things like that. That information is readily available from the U.S. Secret Service National Threat Assessment Center, who spends their time studying perpetrators of this sort of violence.
All right, Jeff, let's talk about the suspect in the El Paso shooting. Now, he drove more than 600 miles to commit this horrific act. What drives a person to invest so much time and energy into doing something like this?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is clearly this is a person who has demonstrated a certain level of commitment, unfortunately, and a great deal of malice of forethought. Clearly some sort of real or imagined grievance or avenger mentality. About 20% of the time, a person will espouse some sort of ideological or racist or religious motivation. But I would caution you to be very careful about lending any credibility to motivations. This is a person who has done something very irrational and brutal and violent, cowardly, and to lend any kind of credibility to motivation.
Starting today for the next 4 days, San Antonio's food scene is taking center stage. It's finally time for Culinaria Wine and Food Festival. And joining me now is Culinaria President and CEO Suzanne Toronto Etheridge. And you've got a lot lined up this weekend. Tell us a little bit about it.
It kicks off tonight with one of my favorite events, Bubbles. It's all about champagne. It's overlooking the hill country, and it's also a Texas-sized super amazing pool party.
Oh,
it's very exciting.
You had me at Champagne.
I know.
So.
Right? We have most people at Champagne.
Yeah.
And then we usher in a great weekend of events. We have everything from Arte Agave, which is tequila driven. Our friends from Mexico bring some great Mexican art and some great cultural influences. And then on Saturday, we have everything from a hole-in-one golf tournament to a lot of educational seminars and series, and then a masquerade grand tasting. And then Sunday is the chef's favorite event, and that is burgers, barbecue, and beer outside, live fire, lots of grills, lots of heat, and then also we'll be announcing some other great events that we have coming up on that Sunday. So we're very excited.
Awesome. And we've got Chef Jason Dady preparing something very flavorful and fresh. Can you tell us what you're whipping up here?
Well, we're kind of at that tail end of the summer now, so we're getting kind of the last little bit of fresh tomatoes, nice greens that are still kind of alive and kicking here. I've got some fresh basil and some sweet peppers. It's just kind of like a nice little hearty end of summer salad with arugula, blood orange vinegar, olive oil. I like the salads to kind of have some, some oomph behind them. So got a lot of chunk in here. And I'm gonna top it off with a little bit of garlic breadcrumb to give it some texture. Almost little croutons, if you will. And then my secret little ingredient today is a little fennel pollen to kind of really kick it up, give it a little anise flavor. But like Suzanne said, Culinaria, unbelievable event. It's got something for everybody, from the grand tasting all the way to the burgers, barbecue, and beer. You got to come check it out. See your favorite chefs. We'll be out there. Come say hi.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Food and Wine Fest runs through Sunday the 29th at La Cantera Resort and Spa. You can visit the website on your screen for more information.